This is Drew, and he has been living with his family for 28 years. He finally decided to buy them a brand new latest model jacuzzi, but after what happened, he decided to build the jacuzzi himself from scratch. And within 3 months, he had created the most stunning and luxurious jacuzzi you could ever see in your life. Imagine, he transformed that empty space into this incredibly lavish jacuzzi. So stay with us in the video to discover the details of this amazing project, how he managed to save over $50,000 by doing it all himself. And before we start, I hope you subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get going. He began by choosing the right spot to build the jacuzzi, and in the end, he settled on this empty space. The first step was bringing in a 3D design to help him visualize the layout before starting the excavation. He decided to go with old limestone to give it a more natural feel, ordering a full truckload of stone that cost around $3,500. He then started digging up the ground, changing a view that had basically stayed the same since he was a child. Before digging the main pit, he excavated a 5-meter trench from the house to the edge of the tree line. This trench would hold the main electrical line and also water pipes for future uses. The jacuzzi was connected to 2 20-amp electrical outlets, and this part of the work was handled by specialized electricians, since it was very complex and not something just anyone could do. Since the electrical wires were also buried 5 meters underground, once that was done, he leveled the soil in the area where he planned to build the jacuzzi. Over the following days, he took his time measuring all the stones and getting a preliminary sense of the layout. When he felt confident enough, he got to work. He started by opening the main pit to approximate dimensions using an excavator, shaping the edges and working on the finer details. In the center of that pit, he dug a smaller hole so the stones could be raised slightly above ground level. The pile of soil from this section would later form the waterfall. Using a long 2x4 wooden plank along with the level, he made sure the ground around the pit was even, something that would save him a lot of work later. The next day, he adjusted the pit further to prepare it for the installation of the jacuzzi's liner and waterproofing layer. He removed any protruding roots, sticks, rocks, or sharp objects that might puncture the liner. After that, he placed part of the underlayment, a 1/4-inch thick fabric layer beneath the pond liner. This extra layer served as protection to keep sharp objects away from the liner. He used a heavy-duty rubber liner about 45 millimeters thick, which was extremely strong and flexible, costing around $2,000. Next, he used a 2-inch wide lifting strap rated to carry up to 4 tons, perfect for moving the rocks, most of which weighed between 200 and 600 kilograms. That was enough to lift and move them into the pit. He wrapped the strap around each rock in a figure-8 pattern and tied it at a single point to secure it, making it easier to position the rock properly inside the pit. After placing some large rocks, he took smaller ones to fill the gaps, then covered the area with small gravel to create a base for additional rocks. He spent the following days placing stones inside the pit, paying close attention to any loose rocks that could collapse and pose a danger to anyone inside the jacuzzi. Despite the challenges, he decided to push forward without backing down, making sure the area was as safe as possible before setting the final stones. Next, he installed the plumbing for the water inlets and outlets. He had a flexible PVC pipe, about 1.5 inches in diameter, the type commonly used in hot tubs. He then cut openings behind the liner and installed 2 pipes running from underneath and behind the tub to the pumps. A 3rd pipe wrapped around the tub to return the water. He temporarily secured the pipes to the liner with adhesive tape until the walls that would hold them in place were built. With the temporary plumbing in place, he was able to set the last few stones and finish the waterfall area. After that, he rented an excavator for an entire week to install the stones.
Each rock took roughly an hour to position, and he often had to dig under the plastic liner with a shovel to shape the spot to match the stone's form, trying several placements until it sat perfectly. After a week of work, he'd secured most of the stones and began working with concrete. He used 10 bags of cement, mixing them by hand, to create the base of the tub. The final layer was about 3 to 4 inches thick, forming the floor on which the walls would be built. He poured the concrete, leveled it, and smoothed it out as much as possible. A few days later, he began building on top of the base he'd made, using bricks he already had on hand, along with cement. After stacking several layers, he started installing the suction pipes for the 2 pumps, using the same PVC fittings as before. Each fitting had 2 openings for water intake. He connected them with a T-shaped joint and arranged them so they extended about half an inch beyond the brick wall. He had 4 intake openings in total, 2 for each pump. The next day, he brought in some gravel and filled the space until it was about 2 to 3 inches below the level of the bricks. Then, with his brother's help, he mixed a larger batch of concrete by hand and poured it as another layer for the base, using about 10 bags. He forgot to add reinforcing steel at that stage. It didn't occur to him until after the concrete had been poured, so he decided to see later if it would hold up. He then began building the walls and installed the return pipes from the heater, which ran around the tub with 6 different outlets. After that, he secured them in place using the same method he had used for the air inlets. He used gravel, just like the lower layer, to strengthen the walls and encase the pipes. The gravel helped filter any water from the waterfall that leaked behind the rocks, cleaning it before it returned to the pool. After that, he made drainage openings in the walls for the main water flow and used mortar and small stones to build the jacuzzi's tiered seating. He shaped an edge over the large rocks using mortar and stones, leveling it into a flat surface with a mix of sand and concrete. He covered some areas with mortar, securing the gravel around the rocks and covering any exposed concrete sections. Then he began installing the tiles using an adhesive called Megalite, which is designed for outdoor and pool use. He spread a layer of it, applied the right amount, and then placed the tiles piece by piece. He spent days tiling the walls and seating, and finally, the floor. The floor tiling alone took him about 3 days, and the result looked absolutely outstanding. He finished the top section of the walls, arranging the stones along the edge and trimming them with a concrete saw. Once he was sure all the pieces fit well, he mixed fresh mortar, spread a thick layer, and laid the tiles, adjusting each stone to fit its spot perfectly. Next, he began filling the gaps between the tiles. He covered all the openings and jets with tape, then applied the grout with a special sponge. Cleaning off the excess grout took a lot of time and effort, so he kept 2 buckets on hand, one for rinsing the sponge and the other for washing it clean. He rinsed the sponge constantly and repeated the process about 15 times until the stones became clearly visible.
Now the interior structure of the jacuzzi was almost finished. He then brought in an excavator for another day to move the last of the stones. After that, he began trimming the excess liner from the inside edge and securing it to the top of the wall, folding the extra material over. He left a bit of excess just in case adjustments were needed later, temporarily taping it in place and using small rocks to press it down and hold it securely. Since the liner was very close to the wall, even in heavy rain, the water would flow around it rather than into the jacuzzi. He kept the area clean and worked creatively around the rocks, hiding the liner using small stones and fine gravel. Next, he began landscaping the area around the jacuzzi. When a shipment of soil arrived, he spread it using the tractor, preparing flower beds around the jacuzzi and creating a base layer for the grass. He then started building the waterfall area, placing a few smaller stones so the water would cascade over them. He used expanding foam designed for waterfalls to seal all the gaps, ensuring the water would flow only over the top of the rocks rather than leaking through. There were two main stones from which the water would pour, and they required a large amount of foam. Afterward, he used smaller rocks to hide the foam while it was still wet, and once it dried, he trimmed any excess. He brought in more gravel to level it with the surrounding stones and added small rocks to give the whole setup a more natural look. Finally, he built a small enclosure for the pumps, framing it with treated wood for the base.
The frame was built from pressure-treated 2x4 lumber and covered with cedar boards. He made one wall taller so the roof would slope, then fully enclose the structure. On top, he installed a sliding roof made from clear panels, securing them with roofing screws. After that, he connected the plumbing. There were two pumps, one dedicated to the waterfall without a filter, and the other for circulating the water inside the jacuzzi, passing it through a filter and then a heater. He ran the waterfall pump, and it worked perfectly. He mentioned that the system would need a few days to a couple of weeks to flush out all the dirt and sand from the gravel. The setup already looked beautiful, and it would be even better once the water was crystal clear. He also installed an ultrasonic mist maker at the start of the waterfall to add a unique atmosphere. Thinking about how to heat the water, he first decided to build his own stainless steel wood-fired heater. He bought the steel, tried welding for the first time, and made a cube with a water inlet, testing it under pressure. The welds were watertight, but later he decided to purchase a ready-made heater instead, a 70,000 BTU model that cost $2,200. He prepared a concrete slab for the heater, pouring about 3 bags of concrete, and after 3 days, placed the heater in position. At this stage, he was in the final phases of the project. He bought exotic trees and planted them in a mix of moss and native soil, spending around $2,200 on the plants to ensure the result looked natural rather than artificial.
When everything was finally finished, the place looked like a resort. He then cleaned the entire area with a high-pressure washer, especially the stones under the water, to remove any algae. He filled the jacuzzi halfway, ran the waterfall, and pumped out the dirty water about 4 times. The next day, he installed a 12-volt magnetic light for the jacuzzi, hiding the cable between the rocks with mortar. The light was safe even if the cable were to be cut in the water because it ran on low voltage. After that, he added garden lights, using a transformer to step down from 120 volts to 12 volts, ran wiring around the flower beds, and attached the lights with easy clip connectors, which looked fantastic. He buried the cable about 2 inches under the mulch. Then he filled the jacuzzi completely with water, hoping there would be no leaks. Luckily, there weren't any. And with that, he had completed the biggest project of his life. He said the project was a huge challenge from start to finish, but also one of the most rewarding things he had ever done. It took around 3 months and cost him about $20,000, and he estimated he saved about $50,000 by doing it himself instead of hiring someone. And that's the end of today's video. If you'd like us to continue with this type of content, engage with the video, leave a like, subscribe, and let us know what other challenges you'd like to see. See you next time.